Hello, and welcome to another episode of Scavenger Life. This is episode number 303 at scavengerlife.com.
This is Trash Elf Radio.
Radio.
Okay. As always, we hope that you're photographing or listing or packing right now.
I hope you're especially packing, because that means you sold stuff.
Yeah, we always love it when packing is annoying.
I was talking to my sister yesterday morning while I was pulling stuff to pack, and she goes, "Was packing annoying? Is packing annoying?" And I said, "Yup."
How did she know to say that?
Because when she was here,
she heard us say it.
I was like, packing's annoying.
Yeah, so if you've chosen selling on eBay as your profession or as your little side gig, then you found your people. That's who we are.
Yep.
Now, as being people that sell online for a living, our internet was out for 24 hours this past week.
26 hours.
Yep.
To be exact.
It's one of those things where it's going, and then it just stops. And, these companies aren't very good at, telling you what's going on. So, we have to call and... Although we did find something where they will email you if there's a problem, right?
Yeah, no, they won't email you if there's a problem. They'll email you when they've fixed the problem. What's interesting is it was kind of like this outage thing where you could type in your address and they're like, yes, there's an outage, and tell me when it's fixed.
But is there a notification so when it goes down, they will message us and it's confirmed, yes, we know the internet's out?
No.
See, that's weird.
You have to look
right
on the site and confirm that.
Our internet's actually pretty good. I mean, it's not very fast here in a rural area, but it's pretty consistent.
It's pretty consistent, yeah.
It really it reminds me how important it is for us to be connected to the outside world.
Well, the issue was it went out while our helper was here. Luckily, it was only an hour till she left, so we did some other stuff with her before she left, but it's one of those things where, her and I kind of looked at each other like, oh my gosh, we can't do anything.
Yeah. The good news is we have it on our phones. We use a service called Ting.
Ting.
For phone service. And I don't know if other services have this, but they have just free... you can put the internet into a Wi-Fi.
Yeah, it's a hotspot.
Hotspot, yeah.
Personal hotspot.
So, it kind of stinks because we definitely use up a lot of bandwidth that way that we then have to pay for extra, but we're still able to get online on our computers and print labels.
Well, basically what happens is when the internet goes down and you have to use your phone as a hotspot, you do the bare minimum. I had to print labels for eBay. That was the most important thing. So I was able to do that. You're not just hanging out online watching YouTube videos.
Sure, right.
You're not doing that, but
yep.
You're doing the basic amount of work that you have to do. So.
But it reminds me in this country. I mean, if we want America to be the greatest country in the world, man, companies,
Internet,
government, whoever really needs to invest in good broadband infrastructure
for all areas of the country. Yes,
right.
I agree with you.
Okay, so something that I thought was cool.
Yes.
Was we had mentioned this. There were two rich kids
in the city
who basically gave away a bunch of their stuff to us before they moved across the country.
Yeah.
We found them on Craigslist. We bought a couple things from them, and then, I noticed they had a big pile of stuff that they were just going to donate to Goodwill, and I was like, we'll take it. And so it was a win-win because they were like, great, we don't want to have to take this stuff to Goodwill, so you guys have it. And one of those things was a bidet.
It was a bidet seat.
Right.
It wasn't like in the 80s or whatever, you think of a bidet, it's like a whole separate,
How come the 80s?
I don't know why.
Why is that the 80s?
I don't know why I thought of that.
80s?
Fancy 80s mansions had that. But it's actually just a seat that you install.
And these kids, and when I say kids, they're early 30s.
They're 32.
They're not kids, but
they seem like
they
kids.
were young and hip and had a lot of money and had a good life and were very nice to us.
Yes.
And so it's basically like a Japanese seat that you attach to the toilet, and then you hook water into it, and then you have to plug it in. And then on the side, it's got a control panel.
It's amazing.
Where it's got heated seat, heated water, and different modes where basically
You clean your butt.
It cleans your butt. And so it's Ryan's a handy person in our house. So
That's right.
it was something that, we were waiting for her to do. And when the internet was down, she actually installed it. And
That's so funny to me.
What?
I'm like, there's no internet, might as well install a bidet.
Efficiency. And
Yeah.
I don't think it's really been getting into it. I love it. It really, it's when I was reading what people were talking about. This is the best way to explain it. It's like if a bird crapped on your arm and you just took like a napkin, like a
And
dry
rubbed it in.
a napkin and kind of wiped it off. I mean, that's basically what
That's the American way.
That's what most of us do. And so the bidet is like taking a wet napkin, I mean, it's great. And so I love it.
Well, what's so funny is they explained it to us like this, too. They had lived in Asia. They lived in Japan for several years. And they're like, every single toilet, every public toilet, every person's toilet has a bidet.
Right.
And they were like, we got so used to it that when we came back to America, we were like...
I mean, I've not used any other toilet in our house. I mean, we have 2 toilets. I've only used this one. And so, okay, why do I bring this up? Okay, so number one, being a thrifty person, which we are, we would not have thought to spend $300 on an item without knowing how it would work.
Because that's how much they said it costs to buy. They actually bought it at Costco.
Right, and I looked it up. It's about $300. $350. But see, as a scavenger... we get to learn about things and kind of evolve because we're open to new opportunities that don't cost us a lot of money.
Right.
I mean, I feel like this has happened time and time again. Where as long as we're just open to things that are just being thrown away and we try them out, like our life improves,
Well, it's kind of hilarious because we bought a coffee maker from them, and it's like the most amazing, like I would never have even thought to get something like that. I'm just like, what?
Yeah, we've talked about it. It's like a automatic,
like espresso.
It's basically like a mini Starbucks.
Yeah, that's what it is,
and it makes different kinds of drinks, and you just pour beans and water in it. It's great.
Yeah, so it's like it's just interesting being exposed to people like that, where that's just normal for them to have things like that, and you're like. I would never think to do
because,
that.
and we were talking about this together. It's just, each of us, even when we weren't together, have never been the kind of people who just kind of buy things on whims to try it out. And I wonder if that's what people who have a lot of money or enjoy buying things, if that's what they do. If they're just like, I'll try this out. And
because they can afford to try it.
And then they don't like it.
Yeah.
And then they just kind of give it away.
They can afford it. But it's interesting you say that because I feel like, we talked about this yesterday actually, Americans are programmed to do that even if they can't afford it.
Yeah, it's a whole thing of like, the whole culture is about like, if you work hard, because Americans do work very hard.
Yes.
And so if you work so hard, then you should treat yourself to anything and everything that you want. So, but the scavenger way is we still live a very luxurious,
in our opinion,
a lifestyle, in our opinion, but we just don't pay a lot of money for it because we're just picking things up here and there.
Exactly.
So anyway, I love my bidet. I'm really surprised that more people don't have them. It's really incredible.
Actually, like if you think about it, if you bought it for $300 at Costco and it lasts years and years and years, that's not a bad thing to buy. It's not like you're installing a separate whole thing, It's just a seat.
Right, but I mean, my point is unless if you knew how it worked.
Oh, beforehand.
I guess if you had tried it
take
somewhere.
A risk, I see. I
mean, it's just like if you just saw that and be like,
you're like, why would I need
I wonder what that would be like.
Yeah.
Let's spend $300 and just try it.
It's an expensive risk. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Okay, so before we talk about our numbers and kind of our eBay, I wanted to talk about imagination, right?
Let's imagine.
And it's more importantly, failure of imagination.
Okay.
I think that we get a lot of people coming into the community and, people have different experiences. They're coming into selling on eBay with different attitudes.
Yes.
And I find like there's one thing that makes people different from each other, you know?
Yeah.
And so people choose a side. And it's like, do they have imagination or do they not have imagination?
Gotcha.
And I think when you're scavenging and selling like we are, you know, for us, it's all about having imagination. Like you go out into the world, into thrift stores, whatever, flea markets.
Yeah.
And there's just junk. I mean, it really, if you like kind of unfocus and you kind of look at the big view, you're just like, there's just
so much junk. Yeah.
But then if you like zoom in and you have imagination, you're just like, oh, look at this. This is really cool. Like,
yeah.
Someone's gonna like this.
Now
you know?
that's the key right there that you just said. You have to imagine someone out there who will want this.
Right.
You don't know who it is.
Right.
But you have to take that leap of imagination, like
Sure.
you're saying.
And, you know, I think that the people who don't succeed very well or at all on eBay are people that don't have that imagination because they're just like, look, I want to try this. I need some money. Just tell
do
me
it quick. Yeah.
Tell me what to buy.
Yeah.
Tell me exactly how much I should sell it for.
Right.
Tell me how much I should expect to
Yeah.
make. I want this to happen fast, and I don't want any change in it's my thinking here. Like I just want this to work. You
To
know?
me, that's commodity thinking. It's like
Right.
a different way of thinking. It's commodity widget thinking. You know.
Yeah, so, you know, like last week we were talking about mugs, you know, like,
Right.
you know, it will say like, hey, we sell some mugs. We love selling mugs. And then people like get too, it's narrowly a focus on that. And they're like, I'm just going to sell mugs. And
I'm going to get every mug on the shelf.
And then they come back 2 weeks later and they're like, I listed 300 mugs and none of them are selling, you know.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh, you know, because again, you're having this failure of imagination of like,
Right.
Of what kind of mugs would sell, you know?
Right, or like, yeah, exactly.
But I think you're also right that, you know, and people do well selling on Amazon, but it is more of a commodity business.
Yeah.
There's some imagination in it. But
Absolutely.
But it is kind of just like, okay, what's going to sell? Okay, iPhone cases, I'm going to buy 500 of those, I mail it in.
This is the profit margin.
You know, I put some kind of price as reducer on it, so I'm competing with people automatically, and then just money's going to flow.
Yeah.
And that's cool. I just think with the way we're scavenging, it really is. Like when we went scavenging, it's this past week at that thrift store.
Yeah.
I mean, we've taken our friends in there.
Yes.
And your sister came in.
Yes.
And everyone always says, like, how do you find anything in there?
Yeah,
it
how
really
are
is
you even?
piles of stuff.
This is just piles, yeah.
I mean, I don't see it that way at all. Like,
but the thing is, you really, like, it's like you said, you're looking at every item and you're analyzing each item, and something will catch your eye, and there's a reason for it, and you say yes or no, and you're like, okay, yes or no, you know,
right.
You make that decision, and it's really hard to like qualify and quantify that decision making. And it's really funny because I was at one of the thrift stores yesterday and I ran into a friend of mine who lives in town, and she's super creative and she's into vintage stuff too, but she doesn't sell on eBay, but she knows I sell on eBay. And we were going through a bunch of stuff, like, because I never go shopping with anyone else but you or, like, my family members when I'm around. Like, I'm never like, let's go antiquing. Like, that's just not, because I'm all business. I'm not like, I'm going to put this in my house, you know, although I did find a couple pieces for us. But it was so funny because she was looking at stuff being like, would you buy this? Would you buy it for this price? Would someone else buy this? Is this cool? And I'm like, it's so hard to answer those questions because it's just a gut instinct. You're like, yes on that, no on that. And she's like, but why? And I'm like, I don't know. I think that one's ugly. You know, I don't know.
It's true.
I mean, how do you tell that to someone?
You know, and obviously we get better and better as we make those choices.
Right.
List them. They sell or they don't sell.
Right.
And then that informs our future, you know, ideas.
But I also want to say about that decision making that it changes over time and it can go back and forth.
Sure.
Like, I'll see something that I would have bought 5 years ago and be like, no way. And then I'll see something that, like, at a certain time before I wouldn't have bought. I'm like, yes, I would buy that now. Like
what?
I don't know,
Can you
like
think of
certain kinds of artwork and like like there was a time where I'm like, I'll get any kind of needlepoint. And now I'm like, no, there's certain tchotchke stuff that I'm like, no. But then there's certain stuff that I'm like, there's sometimes I think it's cool and sometimes I bought too much of it. Like it can really... Yeah.
I mean, that's why I love when people post on the forum the stuff that they sell. On Wednesdays, Steve makes a video that we all watch. And then other people will either post a video or just make a list of cool things.
Right.
And I'm just like, wow, I wouldn't have thought of selling that. Or
I used to think that was cool and I didn't, and now it's cool again.
Right.
Like I feel like that happens with certain things.
And really, I think, like, if you don't embrace that, the kind of, like, there isn't a lot of, it's clarity on what to actually sell. If you embrace that, it becomes exciting because then when it does sell, you're like, yes.
Okay, I knew it.
Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, definitely, if you're new to this and, you're watching a lot of those videos on YouTube, like the haul, it's videos, just trying to see what people are buying. I mean, it's remember, you really have to have imagination. Like, I don't know how successful you can be on the long term if you're just hoping to sell a handful of things again and again and again.
Right.
Okay. So let's talk about our week on eBay.
eBay.
It was a pretty good week.
I think so.
We'll talk about our numbers. Our numbers showed that we had actually a really good week. But
I felt like I was packing a lot.
But I feel like for us, it started to slow down a little bit towards the end of the week.
Yeah.
And there's no reason for that other than just whatever. People didn't. It's one of our stuff. It's this week, but it wasn't quite as... Also, I think the other thing is we were selling a lot of bread and butter items versus we didn't have a lot of big dollar items, which is always nice. That's a thing that... I
mean, I remember there were a lot of, like, things that we took offers on. We're like, all right, $15.
Yeah.
You're just like, just sell stuff. Like, I get in the mode of, like, any offer that comes in, not necessarily like on some of the higher end things where people give you,
but on older items or items you've had for a while,
clothing, just yes, get it out the door. $15, yes, done.
So I do want to thank everyone for all the comments and emails we got on that question we had on active content
and embedding videos. So everyone got that a message from eBay where they're like, be careful of having any active content in your a listing because it will get stripped out or get blocked. And then we were like, well, but the problem is we have some listings that have a video in it that show how the item works. Like Steve Schultz, he's got a lot of those.
So some people, as we're saying, well, if you could just put a link to the YouTube, is that when it gets... So then they can click on that, but then you're like clicking on it, and then you're getting out of eBay. So... what people were saying is that there's actually code that you can embed that will then show the video, and it's not actually active
It's content. HTML5, which is different than Flash, Flash is active content. HTML5 is like... Yeah, I mean... I'm not going to get geeky, but... So, I think it's Brian Boberg, or it's Brian B. on the forum. He actually emailed me the code, and I put it on the forum, but I can put it on the blog post. And I only had 6 listings with videos in it. So I went through and redid the code on those 6 listings, and it worked. Yeah, it worked. Good. Cool. So it's gonna suck for people who have like 200 videos on there, which hopefully you don't. But you'll need to do that eventually. So that was very helpful.
It was. And then the other thing was multiple people were posting about this new thing eBay is going to do called guaranteed. It's shipping in 3 days, where they're trying to directly compete with Amazon.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yep. And, because... Amazon can do a lot of stuff because people send it into the Amazon warehouse, and Amazon controls how things get shipped.
How fast they get shipped.
eBay is different because it's like a distributed network, and they're not. So they have to, communicate in a different way. So I guess what they're going to do is they're going to have like a little carrot for people like us.
Right, for sellers.
If we agree to it, then they will, I guess, either put a marking or boost us in the rankings, I guess.
It reminds me of Fast and Free, if you know what that is.
Sure.
It's the whole free shipping carrot for sellers. Like, you're going to ship in this amount of time and you're going to do free shipping. And that's a little logo that's on the...
Right. So this isn't specifically about being free, but it's like you're guaranteeing that you're going to ship it quickly and then that it will get to the person in 3 days. And then if it doesn't get to the person in 3 days, then us who sold the item and shipped it have to eat the cost
of the shipping.
So it's kind of like the old Domino's pizza, it's there in 30 minutes or it's free. So,
right.
And I know right now there are people who sell on eBay who are like, I ship quickly. The problem is the post office. And I don't know that answer,
So the question is like, okay, if I send something either first class or, smart post, no way that's getting
right, okay.
3 days.
I mean, we talked about this.
Right.
Obviously someone's not going to buy it and pay for as medium mail and expect to get in 3 days. I'm sure it's just like Amazon. If you do the next day, it's always priority.
It's priority,
so they're paying a higher way to ship.
Right. It must be.
So, number one, there's a couple things here. Number one, I think it's strange that we all found out about this from other sources. Like, I was reading links that people were sending from like TechCrunch and other sites. I don't know if I saw any announcement from eBay itself.
Like to us, yeah.
They didn't contact us about this. So
you're like, this is new.
Yeah. So
was it in the spring seller update? I don't think so because people never mentioned it.
So if you think about it, spring seller update is kind of getting ready for this, where they now give you control over when you ship.
Yeah.
Where you can put those timers like.
Yeah.
Anything bought before 3 p.m. every day will get shipped, and if it's after 3, it gets shipped the next day. So that's getting you ready to be able to have this countdown clock for 3 days.
Right.
I think for us, though, we talked about it. I think we're going to try it because we
should. I mean, the issue is only with the stuff that we have to get at our other storage. I mean, if
true.
It's here. I'll ship it the second it sells. I'll get it ready to go. But if I have to wait,
then maybe we'll just do it on stuff where we have it close by, clothes and shoes. And, because we ship quickly already, and so, and we'll take a risk if a couple things are late. Then we'll just eat it. Yeah. But I just wonder how much they'll boost you in the rankings.
I don't know. It's interesting. Or. Sure, boost you in search ranking, but also if there's a checkbox, because there's a free shipping checkbox, and people look for that. Yeah. So there could be a checkbox, the 3-day guarantee checkbox.
Although it is interesting, when they were doing the fast and free, or they still do it, we tried it, and we just decided it's not worth it. Like we didn't get. It's more sales. It's not free to ship, so the cost has to come out of somewhere.
Yeah, so you boost the price on the item. Yeah. So it's just
this is a bit better because it doesn't change anything that we already do. We already ship quickly, right. So we might as well just get in there.
When is it going to be implemented? Like the end of this year or something?
I don't
even know.
eBay hasn't told us.
It's so crazy. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about our Scavenge of the week, Ryan.
Yes, we went scavenging a couple times.
I think the only thing I could think of was you found another painting by that same artist that we sold a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, it was the lobster painting. So
it was like a lobster and a crab dancing.
It was very mid-century,
really
modern,
colorful and interesting. And you found another painting by the same person.
By the same person. And it was even better because it had cats all over it.
Yeah.
I was like, no way.
It's like a dreamscape. And I don't think it's signed, is it?
No, it is but signed. You can't read the signature.
Yeah. But the only reason why I bring it up as a cool scavenge is because, that's one of those things where I just love to find because you're taking... Somebody made this.
Yeah.
And who had talent.
And they took time to make it.
And then suddenly, however its life went, somehow this stuff got dumped, and it was these paintings would probably end up in the trash if we didn't buy these things. And so I like that we can buy these.
Well, someone gave it to a thrift store. They didn't just throw it away.
No,
so that is
but
good.
the thrift store that we bought this at is a kind of like, this is the last house on the block.
It's
like,
the last.
If people like us don't pick this up,
It's gone.
this stuff gets thrown in the dump. I mean,
Yeah.
we know that. So, and it's a kind of thrift store where most people who shop there are not the kind of people that buy
mid-century
abstract
modern.
mid-century. So I feel like we saved it, and I love that. you know?
It's his. We're actually going to keep that painting because
Yeah.
we're like, okay, it's got cats on it. Like,
Yeah.
it's super awesome.
Yeah.
It'll probably go into the new renovated house.
Yeah,
So
neat.
it was a great one. I'll see if I can read the signature, but it looks pretty scribbled on there.
Is there anything else that you're excited to find?
I mean, I found, like I said, I ran into my friend at this other thrift store, and I actually bought a bunch of art there for pretty cheap for either our own house or the new rental house. So that was kind of exciting because it's hard to find cool art that you're like, ooh, I like this piece, and it's actually framed nicely, and I'm just going to clean it and put it on the wall for, $2. So
Cool.
I found several of those pieces this week, so that was fun.
So a couple random things before we talk about our numbers. I'm going to link to this article that I found. It's on the New York Times, and it was great. It was basically like a bunch of little stories about different normal Americans and how they struggle and live.
Yes.
And I loved it because it was all about a number. So it'd be like a picture of the person or the couple or the family, and then it would be like their name, where they live, and how much they make.
That's so interesting.
And then
so rare.
there'd be a very short story about, like this family, they live on $38,000, and this is how they do it. And it was just great because I don't see that a lot in the its media of, how hard it can be to make it.
Right.
I mean, if you have a family and you're making $38,000 a year, I mean, it's not easy. you
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
And we all know this, and that's why I love when people post their numbers every week because they're saying how much that they make. We've tried to do it in the past where we've tried to talk about how much our expenses are, but that's, another big part of it
Yeah.
as well. I mean, and if you're trying to do this for a living to sell on eBay, I mean, that's what it's all about, is like, what are your expenses and how much do you have to sell every week or month to make that happen?
How do you cut down on your expenses so you don't have to work as much?
Seriously. And it would even go into how much is money people owed, their debt.
The debt, yeah.
Oh,
Oh
man.
God, that's like such a nightmare.
Yeah. People have a lot of debt.
Yep.
Okay. Let's talk about our numbers.
Okay.
So, in our main store, we sold 58 items.
Yep. Felt like it.
Which is about the same as we sold a week ago. So, the amount of items we sold hasn't gone down. We made about $1,800.
Yeah. So stuff was cheap.
Which is good. I mean, which isn't bad at all. I mean, if we can make almost $2,000, I'm happy.
Yeah. Seriously.
But it really was. So our average price was about $31. So it was kind of lots of bread and butter.
Yeah.
It was good. And then our second store, we sold 11 things for
Which is a lot for the second store.
about $550.
That's high.
Our second store's been doing good because we've been
listing there.
Yeah. So it's great,
Yeah.
I think the reason why I like having the second store is we use it's money in a different way. It goes into a different account. It's like a savings account.
Yeah.
It's for us. And so as we're, our big goal right now is we paid off, it's Ryan's, it's federal taxes. Now we have to pay off it's federal taxes. And so that money helps us get towards that goal.
Yeah.
Okay, things we sold. The only thing I just wanted to mention were these boots that we sold.
Yeah.
We had talked about it a couple weeks ago. We were at a thrift store, and I saw a pair of boots called...
Ooh, cheese.
I'm sure that's not how you say it.
Pronounced? That's how an American pronounces it.
Yeah. It was, yeah. Anyway.
They're like Western cowboy boots. You bought them for like $2 or $3.
And I'd only known about them because people were posting them on its forum.
Yeah.
And I just assumed like they were some kind of like Italian brand, but it's when I read about it, there's a guy who was Italian who started a boot company in Texas.
Yeah.
Back in the early 1900s, and that's why it's got the Italian name on
Gotcha.
it. But they're American made
Yeah.
and they're sought after. These were just like suede.
Yeah, they weren't. So look, the really high-priced boots of any kind are
But especially of this brand.
especially of this brand, are like more exotic leathers, like
alligator,
lizard or
right.
alligator or ostrich.
And they can sell for, $300, $400, $500. These
Yeah.
were just pretty standard.
Just sweet.
Anyway, I put them up for $80 and they sold within an hour.
Within an hour.
So of course, like everyone,
to someone in Texas.
We're like, did we price these too low?
But
and
we looked them up.
We looked and like
the
that
other
was.
Swede ones were not.
I think it was
much
just
more.
the right price.
Yeah.
I'm happy. It's all good.
Okay, so I have a story about a bag that I bought from another seller for $10. So we talk about sourcing on eBay sometimes. So I found some other stuff on eBay. I bought this leather drawstring purse thing. It was not marked. There's no designer, but it was really nice leather. It was $10. I listed it for $150. Took an offer of $135 to someone in Sweden.
And
so you're like,
it's sold. It's within a couple weeks.
it's
right?
just not even a couple weeks,
Right.
like a week.
Right.
So it's just interesting. Now there was someone on the forum saying they lived in a very rural part of Wyoming, and you can source on eBay for sure. So that was a good example of that.
Yeah, I mean that guy who came on the forum and says I live in the most rural state in the country, and I get it, and he's like, I'm thinking about it's moving to, Denver or someplace that is has a lot, it's more stuff,
Right, but it's more expensive to live there.
and for it's my thing is it's about going back to having imagination.
Yeah.
I mean I could be wrong, but I feel like there's got to be auctions somewhere in the area. So maybe he can't go right down the street to source, but it's maybe every week he's got to do a road trip,
Right. A weekend road trip.
Yeah.
Fill up the car.
Maybe he stays overnight someplace,
Yeah.
Like
that even sounds fun. Look, you don't have to move to an expensive urban metropolitan area. Just take road trips. That's cheaper.
Right. And people were even talking about, just think about it's what's it's your area that people might want. Things like cow skulls, I don't know.
Just like Western stuff.
Right.
Yeah. You got to try to think of those things. Like, you might see things in your area and you're like, oh, I see those all the time. Yeah, but people in New York City don't see that stuff ever,
Yeah. So, again, it's all possible.
Right.
And things can be found and bought anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had one customer issue this week. I'll start it off, and then Orion can wrap it up since she's the one that actually got it done.
Did wrap it up, yeah.
So there's a guy that bought a radio from us.
It's like a walkie-talkie.
Right. And then he said he got it, and then he says, I'm going to return it, and it's your fault. And so because we have it turned on, they have to send us a message, and we have to approve it. And so what we always do, we talked about it, is last week, we just asked some questions. We're like, well, what's wrong with this item? And he said, oh, this isn't the one I wanted. I bought the wrong one.
Right.
So he openly admitted that he just made an error.
Not that we sent the wrong one.
Right. He just bought the wrong, its model.
Right.
And he's sending it back, but he wants us to pay for it. So we accept its return.
Yeah.
We get it back, and we refund him for the item minus the shipping costs. And so normally it ends there because buyers don't follow up with that, and they're just like, okay, I got its money
done.
back. But his wife actually, I guess, noticed that we didn't pay to have it shipped, and she opened up another case.
She appealed it.
She appealed it and says, I shouldn't have to pay to have this thing shipped, even though we bought the wrong one. That we made the mistake.
They admitted again that it was their fault.
And so, Ryan, you called eBay.
The minute she appealed it, I called eBay, okay? And I was just like, literally, I was on the phone for like 45 seconds and they closed it. Because I'm like, I refunded her. She admitted they bought something that they didn't want. It's not my fault. Happy to take a return, but I do not want to pay shipping. And they were like, yep, closed.
Done.
That was it. Two weird things. Number one, when I did call, it's anchor support. So you should get a rep pretty fast. I was on hold for 45 minutes. And finally I was like, number one, I have other stuff to do. Number two, I think this is a technical difficulty. I should not be on hold this long. So I hung up, called back, got a rep in 30 seconds. And I told them about that. I was like, something's wrong with your phone lines.
And didn't they admit
They
that?
said yes, that's been an issue this week. So if anyone else had that problem, don't wait on the phone that long. I was pretty dumb. I was like, this is driving me crazy. The second weird thing is when you have a buyer appeal, like what I did was I went into PayPal to make sure that they didn't refund her the full amount, and PayPal does not make it clear that like you still have your money. Like they have all this weird language of like your payment was on hold because they opened a case and then it got reversed and then it got refunded and that refund got reversed, and you're like, did I get my money? So I was confused about
she's
that.
doing the appeal through eBay. But
Doesn't matter because PayPal's the one that puts, they put your money on hold when someone opens a case.
Got it.
So, and then the hold gets reversed. So I'm pretty sure my net amount came out correct, but I'm also kind of like, this.
How do you make sure? Yeah.
I got a call. Basically, it's just a pain in the butt. You're like, dude, I have to call PayPal now?
Right.
So I actually think I'm going to call Anchor Support again and be like, can you just check this? Because when they close the case, they said they close it in a neutral way where they're like, we're not going to blame the customer, but we're not going to blame you. So I'm like, you didn't refund her, did you? Because it makes it look like they did in a way.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's to appease the customer.
We were talking about this earlier where I'm really glad that eBay allows the seller to even have any kind of chance to fight returns that are, not fair.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. But I just wonder if eBay is going to at some point be like, nope, we got to compete with Amazon because Amazon buyers can just send anything back and get it all paid for. And so it makes people feel very confident about buying on Amazon. Like, did you hear these stories of people buying like, it's 4 items that are kind of alike, and then they get them all 4.
They choose one.
They open them up, try them all, then they keep the one they want, and then send the other ones back and make the people who
pay for
sent
all
them.
the shipping.
I mean, that's great for a buyer. Just as a small seller, we just cannot be eating those kind of returns. I mean, we'll take the return, but we can't pay to have everything shipped. So I'm glad eBay still allows it. I just hope that they keep it up.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it's just because, such kind of different items are being sold on eBay than Amazon that, eBay understands.
And like you said, it's a distributed network. So it's different than Amazon where it's like,
true, send
it back to the warehouse. It's automated. It's there must be there's a reasoning for it. I'm not sure what it is.
But like that it's woman who then it lost her appeal. I mean, I just wonder if that makes her like, I'm not going to buy on eBay anymore because
it's not as easy to just return and say the seller it's their fault. I mean, but then I'm like, I don't want people like that shopping on eBay because they're a pain.
Yeah, you want people to just be honest.
Yeah.
Okay, let's answer questions that people called in about.
You can always call our voicemail line. The phone number is 540-407-8486.
Hello, Jay and Ryan. My name is Josh. I'm from the Central Michigan area. This is the first time I've called. In fact, I haven't been listening to your podcast for very long. I've maybe listened to 20 or 30 or so. But I really enjoy listening to them while I'm at work. And I just, first of all, want to say it's really cool what you guys do. There's not a lot of people these days that have a wealth of knowledge that are just willing to give it away freely. And that's really cool. So you should be commended and pat yourself on the back for that. But I do have a question for you. I'm quite new to selling on eBay. I've only done it for a few months, but I've got a couple hundred items in my store, and I'm finding some success with it, mainly thanks to you with the way I've listed things have been many tips that I've gathered from you guys. But my question is, I've heard you guys talk about listing items that are picked up by location only, and I'm wondering if you guys are finding that by doing that, you end up storing these larger items for a longer period of time, or do they still sell as often as your regular listings that you ship? So I guess to ask it better, your items that you normally list in your store, your inventory that you ship, obviously are smaller than the ones that are by location only or pickup only. So I want to sell some things by pickup only because they're bigger, but I don't necessarily want to have to store large items where I'm climbing over them all the time. So my question is, do you feel do they sell just as often, so you're not sitting on them as long, or do you find because there's less people that are willing to drive to pick them up? I guess if you could shed some light on that for me, I would appreciate it, and I'll be listening to your podcast every week, and just waiting to hear my question answered. Thanks a lot, guys. I really appreciate what you do. Have a good one. Bye.
Yeah, you should see my front porch right now. I'm serious.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thanks for, I'm glad that this is helping you. I mean, we also find that just hearing how other people do things helps us. So that's a good thing. But yeah, I mean, when we buy big things that we just sell on a local pickup, we assume it's going to take a long time. So the only thing we actually keep are expensive items that are $200, $300, $400, $500.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to hold on to a chair that's like worth $50. Like, that's just not interesting.
And I think too, it might depend on where you actually live. So we live in a rural area.
Yeah.
So someone that has to pick it up from our house has to be willing to drive 2 hours from DC.
Right.
Which some people
have.
We've had people come from 8 hours away to come pick something up because it was a special item. So,
but it does take longer.
But I feel like if you lived in like an urban area, it'd be more like Craigslist. So someone's like, oh, they're like across town. No problem.
Like people in that urban area are searching that urban area on eBay and Craigslist.
So it's just kind of an experiment, just try it out. And again, you just got to make sure the thing that you have is a sought after item.
Right. I mean, look, I was looking on eBay today for these special like kitchen sink things. And I saw one that I was like, this one's in Ohio. Are we willing to, drive X amount of time to pick this up? It's unique. We'll have it forever. It's a day trip. It's an overnight trip. Like you start. Look, people who are furniture nerds or are redoing a house or whatever, it's hard to find unique items. So when you find that thing and you're like, I think I'm willing to drive for this,
It's my thing is it's not trying to think like, is someone going to get this? It's more about how long am I willing to store this?
Right.
And you have a storage place that's not going to like overtake our lives. I mean, like we have a front porch that we don't hang out on very often, and so it's become more of a storage area, and that's okay. I don't mind.
But that is the idea behind our storage building too. Is that we're like, we could buy more unique furniture and hold on to it a little bit longer.
Right, but I mean, it's like you said though. I mean, I know there are people out there that they do their own equations about how they're going to get the item.
Yes.
I don't worry about that.
Right.
Because I know that there are crazy people out there just like us who are like, I want this really special thing. I'll make it an adventure.
Right. I'll make it a trip.
Right.
Absolutely.
Hey guys, it's Len of Potter's Pickers. So I just wanted to call because listening to the episode, you guys were talking about mugs and how people go crazy when they hear about mugs. And I was that person. Every time I went to Goodwill or any thrift store, the first stop was to go to Housewares and look at mugs. And I bought anything that had the Starbucks logo on the bottom. And then I branched off into other, I started to just kind of pick out interesting vintage things. So I am buried in coffee mugs. Now, fortunately, I was also buying many, many other things, but I sell maybe one mug every 3 months. I have put my entire mug collection on sale, 50% off. I have gone and switched all my mugs over to 99-cent auctions and never sold anything. So it is definitely one of those things that are super slow for me. And so now mugs are like my kryptonite. I hate mugs. I will never shop for or buy, probably another mug again. In fact, I was looking at a mug at a flea market this weekend because it was like a vintage 80s church lady thing from Saturday Night Live. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then I'm like, what am I doing? And I slapped myself on the wrist and walked away. So, important thing is the lesson I learned is to recognize that while I learned this from listening to folks like you and others, I can't rely on just what I hear on podcasts and YouTube videos. I have to do research. I have to really, learn a category before I dive all into it. So right now I have a pegboard with about 40 mugs, 50 mugs hanging, and every time I look at them, I want to throw up a little bit. But I don't blame you guys. I blame myself for not doing my due diligence and my due research. And so that would be my encouragement for anybody who is listening to podcasts, who's a new seller, and they hear something is hot and they go buy it without research. You got to do your homework. Peace out.
I love that story. That's a story I wanted to hear because I know that to be other people probably are experiencing the same thing and just don't want to admit it, you know?
Look, we have stuff like that. I mean, I have stuff like that in the past where I'm like, I'm going to buy this all the time, crock pots. And then you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, just because we sold one for $80, then we're like, oh, that was like a lucky.
That was like some weird.
Lucky sale. And now we're just happy to get them gone for $25. And
if
just
that, yeah.
And then just once they're gone, we'll never buy them again.
Exactly. Yeah. I hear ya.
Yeah. So, I mean, and we talked about that too. It's like having it's death piles. The best thing to do is just dig into them and list them. And then you hate it, and then you'll never buy it again.
And then you're just done.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
Well, hello there, y'all. You are just who I want to be when I grow up. But here's my situation. I had a solid wooden oak rocking horse for a toddler that I sold and shipped through FedEx. I took it to the office. They waited. I had already packaged it. And they gave me a price of $38 and some change, only to look at my eBay bill this month and see that they had sent, let me back up. The item weighed 13.4 pounds, only to look at my eBay bill this month and see that they had sent a ticket to eBay stating that it was a 71-pound item, and they charged me $100 and some change. And I'm now being bounced back and forth from eBay to them, and seemingly like nobody wants to do anything about it as far as giving me my money back. Any suggestions would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Oh, and my name is Carolyn. Thank you. Bye.
The answer is dimensional weight. Whoever at FedEx office told you it would only be $38 did not measure the box.
Right. And they made a mistake.
They just weighed it and was like, it's $38.
If it was in a standard size box and it weighed that much, that would have been right.
If it was like a 12 by 12 box, But I'm assuming this thing was oversized, in quotes. And that's when they are like, no, this qualifies for 71 to 100 pounds. And you're like, what?
So, because we actually ran into this problem too when we found out about a FedEx Home, because we would print the labels at home and we were forgetting to put the dimensional weights. And so we would pay a certain price online and then we would get charged more.
Right.
So this is what I would do. I would go to the store that actually printed you the label.
Now, this is what I'm confused about.
Go.
If she bought the label on eBay, she must be saying she dropped it off at the store. Because I don't understand that. Like,
to me it sounded like she packed the box, took it to a FedEx, and they weighed it and put a label. So why is she
seeing it on her eBay invoice? That's what I don't understand.
Gotcha.
So there's some confusion about.
Got it. Yeah. So
where'd you get the label?
So if you printed the label at home and then just dropped it off at the FedEx place, then they didn't. They're not the ones that did the measurements.
And the confusing thing is, FedEx makes you put the dimensions in to print the label on eBay.
Right.
You cannot leave it blank.
Right. So anyway, we don't really know the answer, but that's probably what the problem was.
Dimensional weight.
Dimensional weight.
That's what I think it is. I think when FedEx picked it up from their office, they measured it and added that to the weight, and they're like, this is actually $100.
And if that's true, I don't really know what you could do about it because, his mistake would have been yours, and maybe just accept all lessons are expensive, and you'll never do it again.
You'll never do that again. You'll always have the dimensions.
Hey, Jane, Ryan. Hey, I'm out for a walk, so I hope the background noise isn't too loud, but I thought I'd tell you about a situation I had just recently. I sold an item on eBay for about $350, and the buyer, he paid right away, but he also messaged me, and he asked me to wait 6 or 7 days to ship the item because he was traveling. So I responded to him and said, sure, no problem, I'll be glad to accommodate you, enjoy your trip. And so I wondered what I was going to do to avoid the ding for the late shipping. So I called eBay, and I spoke to someone there, and they put me on hold, and I explained the situation. They put me on hold, and they talked to a tier 2 or a manager or someone about what they were going to do. And the guy comes back, and he said, go ahead and wait the 6 or 7 days, ship the item, and as long as the request from the buyer is in the eBay messages, that I could call back after I shipped the item, and they would remove the ding from my account. So I said, great. I went ahead and waited the time. I shipped the item, messaged my buyer, telling him, the item's on its way. And then I went and called eBay, and I spoke to a help desk person, explained the situation, and the person actually looked up somewhere. They had some kind of a record of my call, and he said he saw who the tier 2 person was, and he wanted to speak to that person, but they weren't there right then. So we agreed that he would call me back in 24 hours after he had a chance to talk to that person. So 24 hours later, the guy calls me back, and he says he spoke to that tier 2 manager, and that person stated that there was no promise made that they would clear my account, and there's nothing they can do. So I said, okay. So, the sun's going to come up tomorrow. My life's going to go on. It's not going to be a horrible situation, and I'm not going to call them back. But I did think it was interesting that they actually kept a record of the call, the original call I made. I think it was because they contacted that tier 2 person, and because I'd never had them do that before. But it does seem very odd to me that this large corporation, I took an extra step to accommodate this buyer, and if it happens again, I'll probably do the same thing again. I'm not going to tell them no. I would go ahead and do it again, but I might press them a little bit harder on the help desk to say, you really should do something to accommodate the situation. So, love your podcast. Like this community where we can exchange ideas and thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah, that's really wacky.
Yeah, I think we just always assume that no one at eBay talks to each other, and there's no messages sent to each other. Nope. So if something's going to happen, it's got to happen on that phone call.
Right.
And then when you have the next phone call, we just assume it's a blank slate.
Blank slate.
So we never say, well, someone else told us this.
Nope.
We just assume there's no talking to each other.
Absolutely.
The other thing is, if someone buys something from us and they say, please don't ship it for 2 weeks, we also just assume, we're just going to get dinged, it's going to be late, but we would rather have that sale, and, we have a percentage that we can go under, so it's okay.
It's okay, yeah.
As long as we're shipping everything else on time, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, but it does stink when people are like, can you just hold this past your handling time? And you're like, ooh, that sucks. There have been times where, one time one lady was like, can you not ship this? It was some crazy amount of time, for a month. And we were going away or something, and I was just like, no, I have to ship it at X date. And she was like, oh, okay. It didn't even matter. Right. You're like, lady, seriously.
Yeah.
Okay, that is it for the podcast today. You can check out our blog at scavengerlife.com for the links we discussed and to join the conversation on the forums. You can call and leave a question or a comment on our voicemail line. The phone number again is 540-407-8486. We post an episode every Monday morning. On Wednesday, we post a What Sells video, currently brought to you by Steven Schultz. You can subscribe to us through our iTunes or our YouTube channels, and you'll always get the latest episodes. We're ending this podcast in 3,
2, 1.